I'm ready to move, Misty and Rennie. I'm ready to move.
I saw you there. I was like, okay, yes, I had to get it.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, first, I want to say once again how honored I am to be in the presence of such great Black excellence, honestly. I'll just keep it that simple. And in this conversation that we're having today about solidarity and all of that good stuff, I want to give both of you guys the opportunity to share something that either people may not know about you that is near and dear to your hearts that you want the world to know. And so let's take it back to ladies first, Misty Copeland.
Oh my goodness. You know, I think people know this, but I think something that has really brought my purpose to another level of an understanding was giving birth to my son Jackson 11 months ago. And I think that is an important part of like my identity and who I am. You know, all of these amazing experiences I've had and titles I hold, but mom is one that I'm so proud to hold, and especially to bring a Black boy into this world.
I love that. I have two sons myself, so I feel you. I feel you. Thank you for sharing. Mr. Rennie Harris, what would you like the world to know?
So, I have 4 children, and it wasn't until the birth of my 2 girls that I start to see have a different lens. I think coming from that sort of rough neighborhood, everything was just really stoic for me, and still is in some ways, but they made me love again. And so, you know what I mean? And it was different with boys, and even though they did the same for me, but it was just little moments that, and then all of a sudden it got crazy, and, but my 2 daughters were the ones who kind of put me back on track.
That's beautiful. And I'm going to bring that up later, how our personal lives affect our art and how that comes into play either as a dancer or as a choreographer. But first, we're going to go straight into it, talking about solidarity. Tell a story about someone standing in solidarity for you, or a story about how you stood in solidarity with someone else.
I mean, I've had so many incredible experiences because I have just a long line of mentors that I've had throughout my life and throughout my career, especially Black women who have like stood in solidarity with me and been there on the roughest of days. And the Black community, and especially Black women, have stood in solidarity with me throughout my life and my career. And I wouldn't be in this position without that support. But something that I think is maybe unique to the way that the outside world, or maybe even people within the dance world that aren't in the ballet world, see and view ballet and our solidarity, with each other, that I'm so proud of, is a campaign that I started at the beginning of the pandemic, where I brought together, I think it was like 32 ballerinas from like 16 different countries or something, to raise funds for dancers during the pandemic, where a lot of people were let go or weren't making money, couldn't keep a roof over their heads, and for these dancers from all different cultures and experiences to come together and lend their time. And we put on a performance. We all performed a little part of a very famous variation called the Dying Swan. And raised a lot of money for dancers in that time. And that felt like such a beautiful act of solidarity in such a difficult time for artists. I mean, for humans, for people, but for artists especially. And I'm so proud to have seen people show their humility and humanity in that time.
In the midst of you witnessing that solidarity within the community, how did it impact you, or did it, even from the dancer that came into the ballet game before, and your perception then? Did that change your perception of the community after that happened?
I was hopeful that, the ballet community was going to come together. But again, it's always in the back of my mind, especially as a Black ballerina, that, I haven't often gotten support from the ballet community, especially when experiencing adversity and racism. So there's always a hope, but it was, an amazing and beautiful surprise to see that camaraderie, people coming together again from all walks of life and experience, in that time.
Amazing. Rennie, like
Yeah.
you.
I had twofold. One is similar, where I felt like it was Black women in my neighborhood who supported me as a young dancer. Times I ran away from home. And they were older women who just would give me shelter, give me money, give me food. When I was just on one as a teenager. And I felt like the Black women in my neighborhood were the sort of the support system for me. The interesting part, there was a few people, like as a professional, I think there was only a few presenters across the country that really looked out for me, and they're still friends of mine to this day. In the very beginning of what we were doing, of course, I didn't know what we were doing was anything different. It just made sense to me that, okay, we can create work with a narrative, but using only hip hop movement or street dance movement to do it, right? The times where they used to pick at our shows in the early '90s, it would be like a full on, like, I love comedy. So when I walked up and saw the picket signs, I was like, I thought it was hella hilarious. So I was like, are you serious? It's like, no hip hop,
Wow.
people, they would send, the police to shows anytime we go down south or different places. It's in the '90s, and the presenters held fast. They were like, no, this is not what this is. You're misunderstanding the whole nine. And so I have to actually professionally give it to a lot of those folk like Mark Murphy, Olga Garay, Beth Boone, Laura Four, Ellis Fingers, like all of these presenters were gatekeepers and saw what my neighborhood saw in me that I didn't see.
In the 90s, they were they were fighting against hip hop in that.
Sister, the cop, the cops came to the show. I forget, we were somewhere in South Carolina. Cops came to the show, and my stage manager met them at the door, like met them right at the theater, right before they were coming, because we heard like, oh shit, the cops are here. And so they said, yeah, we heard there's some hip hop here, and I'm standing behind her, and so my stage manager's like, yeah, why don't you just sit down? The show's about to start, and enjoy yourself. And then she just walked away, and I was like, I'm following her. So, Sparkle was her name, and she was like, yeah, you could just sit down and enjoy the show. And they were still trying to make it an issue, but it wasn't an issue of anything. And they just go, what's going on? And it was really, really interesting. I've had dancers, I would send them out on gigs. They would like beg me to fly them back. The town had surrounded the whole theater, crazy stuff. And so, and God bless the presenters who held it down. Like, no, basically was, and they didn't say this, but basically like, you're idiots, stop being idiots. And, this is the '90s, you know what I mean? But it was rough for us at the very beginning.
That's mind-boggling. When it comes to African diasporic movements and the styles that I do, I have to first give credit to the solidarity that my master teachers, the dancers and master drummers that actually saw in me over 20 years ago that I actually wanted to learn this information, they were like, okay, so we're going to give it to you and we're going to, stand by you with whatever you do. And so now that I'm in, the TV and film world and choreographing and even created my own brand, it's like that solidarity coming from them if they're from different countries in West Africa, if they're from the Caribbean, if they're from South America with Afro-Brazilian dance, it's like they can co-sign like, yeah, because we witnessed Kara put in work over all of these decades. And so just seeing that confidence in them pushes me. And so I, thank God for people surrounding me, the people that are here still and the people that have passed away. That is what pushes
Mhm.
me as an artist. I'm now wanting to talk about something that I feel the world is ready for us to talk about. How can we achieve more solidarity in dance genres? And how can we just generally like unify? And this is very, very close to my heart, and I'm very passionate about it because number one, I'm coming from genres that are deemed exotic and in academic situations are electives. Like, go have fun in those classes. It's not
Mhm.
really something that's required as technique in America.
Yep.
And so throughout the many decades, you see my face, I have a smile on my face, but it's like me just exiting every institution like that.
I feel like you're right on like where what I'm feeling and thinking, and that is, I think between genres, like having respect enough to educate yourself on these different genres of dance. And I have to say, like, within creating my foundation over the last couple of years, and this is work that I've been trying to understand and do, through the signature program that we have. It's called Be Bold, and it's really about giving access and opportunity and free ballet classes in underrepresented communities. But it's not just about bringing this white European culture into these communities where they're like, why would I do this? But it's reworking the technique in a way that it's an understanding of the framework in a different way. And I'm saying all of this to say that within doing that work, it's recognizing that perpetuating this language of, even saying ballet is at the center of all dance. To me, that is like so backwards. And that's something that's often that we say, and that I have said before, not being educated. It's about decolonizing ballet and understanding that so many types of dance influenced ballet, and to this day continue to influence where ballet is going in contemporary dance, contemporary ballet. And so I feel like we all have a responsibility to have respect and educate ourselves in these different forms. And that to me will bring unity and solidarity between dance genres.
My heart is just,
Manny, you're on mute. I need to hear what you're saying.
I know, really, come on. I'm
My
over here.
life. It is my life. I'm always on mute. Right. But that's the key, right? Is educating ourselves. When I stepped out of the commercial world, this is 1988, 89, 88. And I realized at the time I got commissioned to do this work in theater, and then I realized I think this is it. This is what I'm going to do. So I went to the library and I looked up ballet and modern because I had seen it once, right? And I didn't understand. I didn't get it. So I looked up the history and started reading about Maria Taglioni, people blowing fire and juggling, and oh, ballet wasn't this unless it had a set, or unless it had a narrative, unless it had these costumes, or all these moments of ballet, right? And so I taught myself who was who, Dennis Shawn, Tennis Shawn, all the Shawns, like every, you know what I mean? Like I literally read about these folk, and it paid off because I was at a thing for Mark Morris.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a reception. Someone walked up to me and said, a white woman walked up, said, "Oh, you don't have to pretend you know who he is." Right. And I was like, "Oh, okay. I said, well, actually, and I ran it down to her like, bah, 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 bah. And she was like, I said, yeah. I said, well, I said, do you know who Boogaloo Sam is? And she was like, no. So, oh yeah, you might want to look him up. Right. You know what I mean? So it was just one of those things where people just assumed that I didn't know, or it's a street dancer, who these folk, but I did my homework because I knew, you know what I mean? That's the thing that you do, right? But for the most part, you have to educate yourself. Once I realized that plie meant to bend your knees, I was like, oh, I started studying, and I still go back from time to time. I read up on my terminology. You know what I mean? I make fun sometimes, like, yeah, coupe de ville, you know, like coupe, you know. And so I'm like, I started making these, because I work sometimes with dancers who are trained in other stuff.
Mhm.
And so in order for me to communicate, I tell them I'm bilingual. We're going to start in this fourth position, and we're going to move up. Like we're going to start here, and I'm going to talk to you in your language, but you have to also become bilingual with me
Right.
and learn my language.
Right.
Because the quote unquote elite don't feel like they have to come to our hood or our neighborhood or our community to party, to gather, to share, right? Because they don't feel they need to do that. They think they know it.
Yep.
Right? And so therefore they're missing out on all this information that informs the very thing that they're doing.
Exactly. You said it so beautifully.
It's so true. And I want everyone to like share your stories. All of the people that's listening, I want you to share your stories. We want to hear it. Okay. I am so happy, Misty and Rennie, that you're talking about this, because you have no idea how many auditions that I am like running. And if I say, do a tendu, you could do a tendu. But if I say, okay, so do you know this particular West African rhythm, but they have African dance on their resume right next to the ballet training?
Yes.
And they're looking like, hold up. I'm like, Africa's a continent, you guys. Like, does anyone come up to you and say, hey, do you do American dance? And America's a country.
Yo. I was in Gambia. I was with Baba Chuck, rest in peace. I was in Gambia, and they were teaching us movement from Mandinka. And in this moment, I realized I was white. I was like, so what's the count with this move? And the master teacher looked at me like, just do it like this. And I'm like, yeah, but what's the count? Because, and then in that moment, I was like, oh shit,
I'm
white. Let me tell you, that was in 1996. That's when the beginning of it, I felt like the real beginning of me decolonizing myself. This idea that we all have, races. We're like, it's part of our design, right? We see something coming, we size it up. Is it a friend or foe? We have to make quick decisions.
Right.
And our decisions are based on what our subconscious, all the things that we're being fed. We're all colonized to a certain extent. And so once I realized that, I was like, oh, I have to really start to investigate why I think this about this person. Why am I feeling about this? And why do I make this decision? And it's a thing that we both, all people, all humans have to make.
Yeah, we all discriminate. We all have biases.
Yeah, we all have these biases. So if we acknowledge that we all have these biases, right, then that's the beginning of quote unquote woke, or being awakened from this sort of sleep or this slumber that we're in.
I love that. I love that. Someone asked me, like, what makes you a dancer? And I said, it's the same way where what makes someone comfortable with speaking a certain language? When they can say what they mean and mean what they say, that's when you're able to use that vocab. And I just feel that all of these different genres and styles are vocab. And in this commercial world, my thing is get your vocab up. The more language that you have, the more 10 times out of 10, you're going to get the job. And with the lack of respect, since we're talking about respect and how these dance conversations can now lead us over into how we live our lives, the more respect that you have for whatever you choose to do. Because it's not like I'm trying to, get converts into what I do, or you trying to get converts to street styles and ballet. No, it's about, if you actually have respect for what you do, then you have respect for all the other styles right along with you. Like it just goes across the board.
Mm-hmm. I think it's getting people who are not knowledgeable or familiar or comfortable with, the arts and dance, especially, it's getting them to understand how much it's a part of their culture and community that they don't even realize they come into contact with on a daily basis. I think about these travel shows that we often see, and it's always centered around food or fashion, and dance is such a vital part of every community and culture. Even if we don't want to recognize it, it is. I think about, we were talking about the pandemic earlier. I think about the pandemic and like what happened in that time. Like we were searching for a way of connecting, and TikTok exploded. People wanted to move their bodies and engage in that way. And I think it's especially for Americans, understanding the value of the language of movement and what it can do to bring us together as a community, as a society. I think it's that we often people often overlook the value of dance and its power.
Right. And if you want to know why a particular group did a particular thing and why a particular group dances or moves a particular way, you have to study what was going on economically, politically, and socially in that era.
Mm-hmm.
Because their dance is the last manifestation of their reality, is the last manifestation of what that person may be going through, whether it's celebratory or as a dancer, as a dancer or a mover. You are the physical historian. You hold this information from the choreographers before you and the choreographers during your era and your own vision for what that movement is. You are a physical historian, right? And so all of these things inform us spiritually because, as you said, Misty, it's a value. The value is health. The value is health, right? The dance, come on, we know it. In my class, I tell them there's no such thing as a person offbeat. You just are not in agreement, your agreement with music. There's an agreement. The music says dance here, bop, 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 bop. You decide not to do that. So you're not in agreement with the music. So once you get into agreement with the music, you'll be fine. Right?
Yeah.
But there are people who dance between the raindrops, right?
Mm-hmm.
But God bless them, right? Because it's moving from their soul.
Yeah.
And it's funny to look, it's entertaining and it's hilarious. But you know what? They're dancing from their heart. It's like some of the white folk who may come to our block party in North Philly and they're just doing their thing and everybody's cheering them on. No one's like, oh, you guys suck.
Right.
Get it. And my mom was like, get it, baby, get it. Yeah, get it. And everyone's loving that because we know that you're moving from your soul and your heart.
Preach, preach, preach. You guys are great segue speakers. I love how you just naturally flow into where we already supposed to go. That's because we are connected and I love it. All right. That was my movement to show the connection. Now, a particular question came up in the chat, but I was already going in this direction because I'm always trying to shine a light on the worth and the value of artists, period. Because especially in trying times where it feels like Armageddon-ish nowadays, artists, even though we are the most pulled on, we are at the bottom of the totem pole always. So as we see growing polarization, more people identifying as white supremacists, book bannings, the anti-CRT backlash, can you speak more specifically about the unique role dance can play and will play to counter all of what's going on?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like when you just look back on history, artists are always like at the precipice of evoking drastic change, positive change. I think that we have a responsibility, but also a power that goes beyond politics. Dance has a way of bringing different groups of people together that speak different languages, that come from different communities. People want to be a part of it. People want to support us. People want to hear what it is we have to say. Because there's, I think, no better way to communicate than through something that we come out of the womb doing. We come out of the womb moving our bodies. That's what babies do. That's the first thing they do. They sing and they move their bodies, and it's such a natural part of who we are as human beings. And I think that we have so much power in telling stories, in making change, and doing it in a way that's so natural and human and organic.
And to jump on top of that, I think, the one thing is to keep in mind that dance and movement is the most dangerous. Music and movement are the two things that will unite people to move forward. And movement, and it's why it's not tangible. You can't take it home. And it's just the most dangerous when you get people to move through space at the same time. You would have to have 1 million individual men to have a million-man march who can move all at the same time. That is dangerous. Mm-hmm. Artists are dangerous. They galvanize folk to move. And it's through the word and through the frequency, the words and the music that then we respond to as movers, dancers, and then we respond to that. That understanding of dance, once we understand it, then we know how to apply it, and then we know how to to navigate our space and our surroundings. Because when that spirit hits you, you're going to change. It's a religion. That's what hip hop means. Hip hop, coming from the word hippie, according to Dr. Geneva Smitherman, it comes from the word hippie, which is the word hippie is coming from Wolof language out of West Gambia, in Gambia, West Africa. And it means to open your eyes, to reopen your eyes, to see beyond what you think you see. But here's the other part. We understand we moved in 2020. We moved to a Million Man March. We moved with the Women's March. The LGBTQ march. All the marches we moved. What needs to happen is the follow up, which is economics. That was the thing that people forgot. I don't know if they forgot or about the civil rights movement. People boycotted and then moved in solidarity. Our power is in the money that we spend. You have to take action. That's the hip hop bylaw.
Woo, you guys are blessing me today. All right. So
you got me. I'm feeling like,
that's why I was like, I'm ready to move, Misty and Rennie. I'm ready to move.
I saw you do this. I was like, okay, yes. I had to get it.
All right. So I want everyone to now define solidarity and what it means to you, what it feels like, and all of that good stuff. I'm gonna start because you brought up economic, and basically everyone starts the movement, but then what comes after? I'm gonna bring up education and when to not get in the way. Mm-hmm. That's a big elephant in the room in terms of what we do, because sometimes there are particular situations that need to happen, and when you move out the way and allow those doors to open, that is what allows what needs to come next to actually come into fruition. And I'll give you an example. I worked on the team, Fatima Robinson's team, for Kendrick Lamar's 2016 Grammy performance when he did The West African. And so I assisted in choreography for that part. She could have, because she's a living legend herself. She is her, Fatima Robinson. She could have been like, just do the movements and do the job and then, keep on going, get your check. But every chance that she took in the rehearsal, she was like, Kara, explain to Kendrick what you're doing. Because she knew that all of my movements came from a traditional source. So that's what I do. I transpose traditional movements into jazz, into hip hop, into soul music. So she's like, okay, you're explaining, but this is a movement of Shango pulling thunderbolts down onto earth. This is, tell Kendrick, like, this is what you're doing. And so that to me in real time was true solidarity. You allow, when people allow situations of education to manifest in real time and not try to stop it, not try to, come in the way and just be like, it is just a 5, 6, 7, 8, Kara. Get your money and go. It is just, keep it at a practical thing. Those moments to me is the biggest in this time of Armageddon-ish Armageddon-ish culture that's going on, that reigns true to me in terms of solidarity. And I would love to hear any examples of what solidarity means to you.
That I love everything that you just said, and I feel like solidarity to me is just strength in community. In America, especially, we look at dance as these competition shows we see on TV. And I think that it's so much deeper. Like, that's a window in, but that there's a unity that is ingrained in dance, and that should be ingrained in our cultures if dance is really, an intertwined part of our communities. And so that's how I view solidarity. It's dance as this heartbeat in our communities and culture that bring us together.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That especially the education part. Rockefeller was famous for saying, "We don't want a nation of thinkers. We need a nation of workers." And then he went ahead and changed the education system in this country. And that's why I think even with my company, our mission statement is to educate the masses through performance, right? Mm-hmm. And residency, not to just perform and entertain. My students, my company, I teach them, do not teach this movement without giving them a history of this movement. This came from Buddha Stretch. Buddha Stretch did this for Michael Jackson and Remember the Time. And this is how this becomes boom, boom, boom. This is the Bart Simpson. This is the so-and-so. And in doing that, we are understanding ourselves. And I mentioned earlier about us being this idea around whiteness, right? That was a thing that happened. That wasn't, people didn't get here and say I was white. They got here and said, I'm Irish, I'm Italian, I'm Polish. And each one of those ethnic groups were the scourge of the earth here in America. Mm-hmm. They all were not, wasn't good to be any one of those groups at one point. So we've all kind of come through our own thing, and we just have to know that our differences make a difference, and that's important. Mm-hmm. And then we're American, right?
Yep.
That's I love America, even though it's crazy and wild and it's just out of fucking pocket. We are really out of pocket. We're so out of pocket. There's no fucking. But I love it. You know what I mean? But I also know that my belonging to this particular ethnic group is still strong as well.
Check out oursolidarity.org
to share your stories about solidarity today. We want to hear from you.
You can leave some comments if you want. Get real. Let's hear from the streets out there.
It's inspiring to be able to come together in solidarity, and I can't wait for all of you to witness this.
Peace.